Very special edition of Curtain Call. My name is Leah Granger and I'm your host. Curtain Call is presented by FabCollab and supported by Canadian Heritage. It's a weekly interview series where we speak with powerful women in the arts about their careers, about how they got to where they are today, the struggles they faced along the way, and their triumphs and how they've gotten to where they are. So today is it's a first on Curtain Call because we started this series during the pandemic and we've always been doing it with people that are in a different place. But today we have the first live Curtain Call where we're both actually in the same room. So watch this little bit of magic. Dun, 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 dun. That's our guest, Linda Bailey, who, get this, is my mother.
And somehow I get to be a powerful, what was it?
Powerful woman in the arts.
Powerful woman in the arts.
It's shocking that we have been doing this for almost 2 years and we haven't had Linda Bailey because you're probably one of our most illustrious, inimitable, probably most esteemed,
yeah.
Lauded,
yes.
I think she's probably our most lauded guest. We got a viewer there. Look at that.
Oh, good.
Hello,
good.
hello. Oh, no, they left. Okay. All right. So let's talk about, let me introduce Linda Bailey. If you haven't heard of Linda Bailey, you probably don't have a child or you never were one because if you're a Canadian kid or a 40-year-old like me, you probably read her books somewhere along in your youth growing up because she's a children's author who's written more than, how many books have you written now?
Almost 40.
Almost 40 books.
Yes.
Oh, hi, Rocio. She's written, she started with a mystery series when I was 11. She started publishing Stevie Diamond.
In 1992.
In 1992, this hilarious mystery series about a powerful girl detective, which is right in line with all of our Fab Collab ideals. And then there was just like a stream of novels, picture books, awards, traveling the world, doing readings.
All of that.
But let's go back to the beginning. Hi, Vanessa. Let's go back to the beginning. Linda Bailey, did you always know that you wanted to be a writer?
No. When I was a little kid, I used to draw a lot, and I would draw many pictures of beautiful ladies in long gowns.
Classic.
And I thought that I would be, if you would have asked me then, I would have said I'm going to be a dress designer. Yes. No. And no, I don't never wear a dress.
Come on.
Ever. I don't care the slightest bit about clothes.
Things changed somewhere along the way.
Somewhere along the way. Well, I fell in love with books. That's what it was.
You're a reader.
Yeah, I became a reader, rather than a dress designer. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, you became a writer.
A reader, then a writer.
So when did you start writing? What did you study in university?
I did an English degree, and then I did a master's degree in adult education, which I have never found a use for, really. but I did a very few writing courses at university, but mostly it was about getting the English degree, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then were you writing at that time? Like, were you, was there like inklings of this was a thing that you wanted to do?
I was creeping around it, and I was afraid of it, really, because I cared so much about books, and I loved books so much, and the underlying fear behind it all was that I would start to write and be terrible, and then I would know it, and I would fail, and it would be...
That's classic.
My little dream there would be gone. So I didn't want to test myself.
That's how a lot of people never do the thing.
Right. I was frightened to test myself, and it wasn't until I was in my late 20s, early 30s that I started to creep closer towards it. And I had children. I wrote for adults for a few years, but then I had these two amazing, wonderful children. We have a photo of them here.
Adorable.
Yes. And it turned out they loved books. And
we did.
And
I
love books. And we went to the library all the time. And I came home. I have poor shoulders probably because of this, because I dragged huge bags of
Books.
library books back.
That's on you. You were into
remember
it.
that, right? You remember?
I do remember like you carrying bags and like your hands were like,
Yeah. Holding onto the kids' little hands, holding onto.
no, but the book hand was like
Yes.
so heavy.
Yeah. So do you remember me reading to you?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time reading. Yeah.
But you were like, oh, my kids were such readers, but you made us be readers.
I forced it. Yes.
Yeah, but then we loved it.
Yes. My other daughter Tess didn't love books as much as you. She didn't love to sit still, so she used to do cartwheels around the room, and I would hold the book up as she went past, so she could see it upside down. Yeah.
Nice.
So.
But then when you started writing when we were little, I think.
Yes. So I didn't get. I wrote children's books for about 6 or 7 years without any success sending the books out. So, and I didn't get published till 1992. But I have a kind of 6 or 7 year. What would you call that? Apprenticeship. I call it an apprenticeship because
pitching. That's part of being a writer. Well, that's what you learn in the beginning.
That's what you don't know.
I feel like they tell you rejection.
Well, I don't want to call it rejection. It was rejection, but I learned. I learned what I was doing wrong. I learned about publishing. I went to every conference I could find.
You did.
I joined every group I could find. I took classes.
So you pursued it aggressively at some point.
Yeah.
At some point, you were like, no.
Yes.
I'm testing myself, and I'm going to do it.
Yes. And I worked really hard.
Well, did you think that you were good?
I didn't really know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as time went by, I won a little contest.
She's so good. The books are hilarious.
A teeny tiny contest I won somewhere.
The pool.
Yes.
My mom, I remember that.
Do you remember?
We wrote a short story for adults, though.
It was a short story for adults, and there was
I
a
do
kind of
remember
organization of BC writers who were holding a little contest, and I won that.
I remember the manuscript.
I won that teeny tiny contest, and I got to go somewhere and read the book aloud.
The story.
The story.
Yeah.
It wasn't a book. Of course it wasn't a book. It was a little
I
manuscript.
know, I remember. It was like a few pages.
You came, didn't you?
I don't know. Where was it?
It was in some hall.
Like in Vancouver?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember this
There were people there. I was terrified.
I find it very weird to read the things that you've written for adults.
Why is that?
Because it makes you like an adult that's like not my mom.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, like,
I had another life.
yeah, it's weird. Or like you have adult thoughts. I'm like, no, you have like parent thoughts and you write books for kids.
And I haven't, I haven't showed you all the sexy ones yet.
Ooh, ah!
I haven't written any sexy ones.
Thank
Maybe,
God.
maybe I still will.
No, please don't. No. Okay, so like that was, yeah, and then your first book was a hilarious mystery for kids.
Yeah.
Which is like pretty crazy to start out with a novel and B, a mystery, which are like, well, it's just that's a big feat, it seems like, compared to a picture book. Not to belittle picture books, but like you're writing a novel, it takes time. You have to structure it, and a mystery, which has like all of these structural story things.
Would you like to know why I did that?
That was my next question.
Okay. The thing is, I figured out that what I was doing wasn't working. I was writing all these picture books and sending them to publishers and getting nowhere. And but somewhere along the line, I figured out that there are holes in the market. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I realized with you guys, you liked mystery stories, but there really weren't any at that time for girls. There weren't funny ones for girls, and there weren't Canadian. So all of that was a hole.
So it was strategic.
It was very strategic, and it was the kind of thing that I knew I could do. I could set it in Vancouver. I could create a funny kid. My writing tends to gravitate there, and I could write. And I loved mysteries at the time, less so now. But I really read a lot of mysteries, so I knew how to do that. So I found these things I could do that also happened to be a hole in the market. And the first publisher I sent it to pretty much scooped it up.
Scooped it?
Scooped, yes. It didn't take long.
Did you write the whole book before you sent it?
It was 7 years of failure and then, rocketing success.
So did you, was it finished when you sent it? You wrote the book?
I did, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Guess what? It's good.
Well,
they were like, more.
It became a series. It became a 7-book series. And it did well, and it went to other countries. I think it's in maybe another 10 or 12 languages. And
that was in the 90s, folks.
And they ended up, the whole bunch of them ended up selling 500,000.
Really?
Yeah.
You sold 500,000 Stevie Diamond books?
Yes.
I did not know that.
There you go.
The covers were pretty funny.
The covers were terrible.
They were so, well, the first ones were terrible.
Yeah.
Then they got better.
Yeah.
But they were very hilarious, and you kind of like made a name for yourself as somebody with a sense of humor who could write.
Yeah.
And so, like, tell me a little bit, now you write, now, I think also it's like people think writing a picture book is easy, so it's good to be like, I'm going to start with this novel and do this thing that's like more difficult, and then I'll be like, now you know me, I'm going to write all these picture books.
Well, I actually did write picture books before that. It's just that
nobody published them.
That's right.
Yeah, but now they can't get enough.
Now I mostly write
They
picture
cannot
books.
get enough.
Well, actually, they can, because sometimes they say no.
Yeah, but that's like on them.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your creative process, because I see it happen. Let me tell the audience a little bit about your creative process.
Sure. I'm going to have some coffee.
My mom is like, she's like, just sitting there, she's like, ooh.
I don't do that.
That's how she's like, and that's her like writing the book.
What?
What I mean by that is that you have a rich internal life.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you are like amused by your own characters and your own stories. Mm-hmm. And like to such a point that you're like telling them to yourself. It's like they happen to you when you're like on a walk or like you're cooking or something.
You're making me sound so lonely.
No. Well, you're not lonely, but you have this, you're not lonely because like you have the amount of friends and social life that you choose to have, but you like to do stuff by yourself because you're like thinking about all of these wonderful stories.
Yeah, I do like to stay inside my own head. That's true. And I do lose touch with the external world sometimes.
That's good though. That's normal for artists, I think.
I guess so. I mean, it depends on what art, right? I mean, if you're an actor, no.
No, sure. But like a musician or like, you know, where you're creating something like that, that's like...
You go into the dream world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you go into your inner dream world and you are somewhere else. And that's actually what I love about it. I like that inner world, sometimes too much.
So like can you give us an example of sort of like the evolution of like an idea? Like one that's kind of fun was the mittens or I don't know, I'm sure you have lots of stories you could tell about like how like something evolved from just like a daydream into like started to form into a story.
Let's see. Well, I did, I have a book coming out next year called The Three Little Mittens, which sounds a lot like an old children's poem, which is Three Little Kittens. And that one started because I was listening to the radio, and I thought I heard three little mittens, and I tried to figure out what that could be.
You thought that's what they said?
Yeah, I thought, why would anybody have three mittens? And it turned out I was hearing wrong. I just misheard. There actually was three little kittens they were talking about. But I was already thinking of Three Little Mittens, and I ended up thinking about why would there be three mittens and what would that mean, and I did write a story which is going to be published in the fall.
And then like the story like evolved into this very lovely there's like not a lesson but like a beautiful moral, but it's also like a funny story, which I think is true of a lot of your books. They say they have heart.
Well, yeah, so what I would like them to say is that the books have humor and heart, which I think that's a good combination for kids. And also hope, because I think not in adult books, you don't have to have hope at the end of adult books. And although I kind of like it, frankly, I like when a book ends with hope.
Yes, as do I.
But you absolutely, and that's one of the reasons I fit in children's books rather than adult books, because I don't really very much like go over to the dark side in my imagination. My imagination tends to stay pretty cheery and light, and as you know, I'm shallow.
It's not shallow. I feel like it's like the thing, to make an analogy to film, it's like there was a really funny skit at the Oscars, the Academy Awards, where it was like Will Ferrell, Jack Black, and John C. or yeah, 3 comedians, and it was about how the comedian at the Oscars is the most sad, pathetic, alcoholic clown because the things that make you like art that is like happy isn't as like rewarded,
no,
as
respected.
sad or respected as, but it's like neat, like so adored and like needed, and it's like a good comedy, a good like a funny book is like everybody loves it, and like but it's seen as like popular, or like, you know,
right.
Not as much as art, which is false.
Yes,
it is art,
and the comedians cry all the way to the bank.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So what you do is definitely an art. Let's like get a look at one of these.
All right, here's a princesses versus dinosaurs. That's a recent one.
So this is like a genius idea, because these are 2 things that every kid, or most kids, maybe not the princesses, often girls, but well, tell us about where this idea came from.
Well, it came out of a joke. I met my editor once in San Francisco. We were at a conference, and we were talking about what was hot with kids, and she was kind of reeling off a whole bunch of other things, and among them were princesses and dinosaurs. And so we were laughing about, what if you put them in the same book? And I said, you can't put them in the same book. It's not possible, because princesses, if you're putting princesses, you have to have dragons. Princesses belong with dragons, and they weren't in the same time. Princesses, are the
same world
in human historical times, and dinosaurs are prehistorical. So anyway, it was a no-go. We just laughed about it, and then I went home, and one night I was lying in bed at 3 a.m. actually, and couldn't fall asleep, and that little thing was niggling in my brain, and I was. Princesses and dinosaurs, and what I ended up thinking about was having 2 books in one. You have a princess book and a dinosaur book, but they're fighting over the book. These 2 groups are fighting over the book, and they are on different pages. So here's the princess world on this side with pastels and pretty dresses, and here's the dark brown dinosaur world. And they're arguing across this is the gutter. They're arguing across the gutter about whose book this is. So it did become a book. So sometimes it's kind of fun to be challenged sometimes, and have a problem and go away, and my own theory is that I don't and maybe this isn't all the arts, but that it's best if you don't actually do things deliberately with your conscious mind. It's best if you do have a kind of a dream world thing going on, where you actually allow your subconscious, which knows a hell of a lot more than your conscious mind. You allow your subconscious to just get out of the way of your subconscious.
Okay.
Yeah.
You let your conscious gets out of the way of your subconscious.
Yeah,
and then
you try to curb your conscious mind.
But I imagine that is like the beginning of the process. At some point, is there like, do you think about like story and like structure in a like more conscious way?
Actually, no. I mean, I actually think that if you have done just a lot of homework first, by, in my case, reading thousands of stories and reading, then it's already there. The structure is there, just as you have a structure with flamenco. And there's a certain basic thing, and then you play within that structure.
Right.
But you know so many dances that you probably don't have to think it out. Or do you? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's true. Like, yeah, it's like your subconscious will just like take you there anyways.
Yeah, and your subconscious knows all the structures really well, right? And it'll just pick one. It'll pick the best one, right? So I think it's for me personally, it's kind of a bad idea to sit down and try to outline something or try to say, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3. I can do that. I have a brain that will do that, but it doesn't make a good story, you know.
But what if you haven't done any homework?
Oh, then you should do some homework.
Then should you make an outline?
No, you should do some homework. You should go and read 1,000 stories.
I like outlines.
Can
you tell?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I outline probably more when I write nonfiction because I also write nonfiction.
There you go. Yeah, that's true.
This is
Let's see an example of that.
All right.
This is a big hit.
Biography. This is the biography, the story of how
beautiful art.
An 18-year-old girl named Mary Shelley, who was married to Percy
There
Shelley.
she is there in the middle under the monster.
She wrote the book Frankenstein.
Monster.
So the book is called Mary Who Wrote Frankenstein, and it has absolutely spectacular art. I hit the jackpot with.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
This time
Look at this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is really cool. I was in Madrid when this book came out at Halloween, and it was like in every store window in Madrid, which was so cool. I was very excited. I was like international fame because this is such a beautiful spooky book, and what a story.
The artist's name is, we should show a picture with Frankenstein here. The artist's name is Julia Sarda, and she's Spanish. And she lives in Barcelona, and so the book definitely got translated into Spanish. It got translated into other languages. Oh, here we are. That's good one.
Here's the one with the monster.
Yeah. So she had a vision in the middle of the night, and I think it was, you know, she had been thinking for days trying to write a ghost story, and one night she was half asleep, and she had a vision of this created monster. So
same as you.
No,
not exactly the same, but like same.
Well,
parallels.
Oh, look at that! The sun went away. We look different. Okay.
So what I know, like I just like talk to a lot of people who are like aspirational, like want to write children's books.
You do.
Yeah.
Oh.
I have several friends.
Oh, okay.
And what do you tell people that like come to you and are like, oh, your career is amazing. Like how do I do what you've done? Like, what do you tell people?
I would say, do your homework and do an apprenticeship. I think it is about, a lot of it is about hard work, and you know, yeah, it helps to have natural talent, of course, but the same way you have put all these years into becoming a dancer, right? It was actually time, sweat, and work. And
what do you mean by apprenticeship?
I mean, learn everything you possibly can. I started out, doing the wrong length of books, doing the wrong subjects. I didn't really know I knew, like, I read picture books to you guys, and I knew sort of what they look like, but I was kind of working with an old model. I didn't know what publishers were publishing now. So I started to do, there's so many organizations, right? There's tons of organizations you can join. There's wonderful conferences. There's so many ways to educate yourself to the point where you actually understand what is it that a publisher wants from you. And when I started out, I had no idea, and I was sending them all kind of, wacky, impossible stuff that they never would have published in a million years, because I was just, plain old ignorant about the whole thing.
Yeah, and you were, I think some people sometimes in the arts, it's like you have to also like realize this is a business, and you need to be like producing the thing that people, if that's your goal, if your goal is to like make money and make a career.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like you need to be giving them what they want. to some degree.
Right. And there are, you know, you can go and do a master's degree in children's literature, which will include writing, etc. But you can create that kind of same thing for yourself just by exploring and by signing up and joining and reading and doing everything and hanging out at bookstores, hanging out at libraries.
Just be an adult hanging out in the children's section of the library or the bookstore. There's
Yeah.
nothing weird about that.
No, they get used to you, and they do kind of expect you to buy a book before you leave.
Once in a while.
Yeah.
I wanted to just talk a little bit about the humor, like coming up with a funny idea, because this is one of my like the cutest and funniest books, I think, of my mom's books. I mean, there's many, but this is good. When Santa Was a Baby. It's just like such a simple concept conceptually, but then you really like exploit it in such a fun and funny way. It's just like all the different things, like what Santa would have gone through as a little kid, just giving away all his gifts. And I don't know, I love this one.
Oddball kid.
An oddball kid, yeah. This is like a favorite. What is your favorite book? Or do you have like a couple favorites among the many that you've created?
Yeah, well, I like Mary a lot, and I have
Mary's
written
beautiful.
a few novels. I mean, besides
Yeah,
the
that's a
mysteries.
great one.
So I do really like this one. It's about a shy boy who moves into a house and discovers there's 7 pirates living in the room he's chosen for his bedroom.
Yeah,
So
this is a classic.
so I got to talk like a pirate in this book.
Yes.
Yeah. Which was, I read Robert Louis Stevenson, Treasure Island a whole bunch of times, and then I could kind of mock it a little bit.
Do you think that you'll ever retire, or is this also like your vocation? Like, do you like it?
No, I probably won't, because I have a lot of friends who are children. Most of my friends now are children's writers, and they don't retire. You know, a lot of people retire, and they're waiting to retire so they can write a children's book.
Yeah,
You know, so
that's backwards.
so the people who are already children's writers, no, I mean, what would they do? What would I do with my time if I wasn't doing this?
Well, lots of people want
I
to
could
stop
take
doing their
I could take up
jobs.
flamenco.
Yes, you could. You could. I would love that.
Mm.
But I just mean, like, you know, people retire from their jobs because they want to stop working. But I think it's like you also like love the process.
Well, yeah, that's why
Mm-hmm.
I chose it a long time ago. It was, I mean, people do it because they love it. Just the same people who are visual artists or people who are musicians or dancers. You do it for the love of it, and you know, if you're really lucky, you can make some money in that, and that's fantastic. But,
Or really good.
well, or work really hard.
Yes.
It's all some kind of
It's some balance of, what is it? Talent, hard work, and luck. Aren't those the 3 things that you need? Like you
That's
need
good.
like 2. You need 2 out
good.
of 3.
That's good.
I didn't make that up. I can't take credit for that. I think those are the 3 things. There might be one other, but yeah.
It sounds good to me. Yeah.
Or unfair advantage.
Or yes, that's right. Wealthy relatives
Whatever.
who own publishing companies.
Exactly.
That would have been good.
That would have been helpful. It probably would have kickstarted things.
Yeah.
Now, what do you have coming up?
Well, I have.
What have you had just come out, and what is on the near horizon?
Okay, Near Horizon is kind of a follow-up to the Mary book. So that book is called Mary Who Wrote Frankenstein. It's a biography of Mary Shelley, who's the author of Frankenstein. And I have just done Arthur Who Wrote Sherlock.
Yeah, that is
So-
very exciting.
Arthur Conan Doyle and the process of writing, inventing, and creating Sherlock Holmes.
Any Sherlock Holmes fans are gonna love this upcoming book, because this is the thing that maybe people don't realize, like the amount of research that goes into writing a picture book.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. Like, you've read every book, or like I'm looking behind us here. There's like,
Here's my bibliography.
yeah, I can see. Is it? Yeah, you read all those books?
Yeah.
Yeah, and right behind us, I can see there's 2 shelves of books about Sherlock Holmes.
About Arthur Conan Doyle.
About Arthur Conan Doyle, sorry.
Yes.
Excuse me. They're 2 different people.
There were a lot of biographies written about him, and if I'd known that, I might not have chosen him.
Well, but there isn't one like this.
well, there's a lot of biographies of her as well, adult biographies. So
yes, but this is a different
then,
thing.
and so my job then becomes to take all of that huge amount of material about somebody's whole long life and shrink it down to fit into a 40-page picture book that has to allow for a lot of space.
Did you write it in the present
for
tense?
Art.
The next one?
I did, yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
And the interesting thing also is that a lot of adults read this book. Like, people buy this for adults as well as kids. Which is becoming more of a thing, illustrated books for adults. Not for adults, but that people are buying them for friends and or for themselves.
I think so, because, well, this book, the art is so extraordinary.
And a bit scary, too.
It's a wonderful thing to have on your coffee table.
Exactly.
People will pick it up.
It's beautiful. And I feel like there's more and more of that.
Yes.
Like that's a thing that people are like consuming.
And it kind of crosses the store and sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's in like trendy coffee table section of like an arty bookstore.
Yeah.
Now, where can people find you online if they're interested in following you or knowing what you're up to?
Oh, well, I'm on Twitter.
Do you tweet?
Not much.
But when you have a new book coming out,
yes,
you'll let people know.
I might tweet more.
Now, how do people find you on Twitter? What's your handle? Is what it's called?
Oh, yes. At Linda Bailey Inc. INK.
Oh, nice, clever.
Yeah.
Very good. And what about your website?
I have to redo my website.
Okay, but what's the URL?
LindaBaileyBooks.com.
LindaBaileyBooks.com. Yeah. Now, this is the thing. You won't, like, I talk to my friends with kids, and, like, they just love these books. Like, I'm not just being a pitch man here. Your child will love this book. They're obsessed. This was a huge hit. Carson Crosses Canada.
Well, I'll tell you something. That book was rejected.
Really?
When I first sent it. Yeah, they said there's no market for it.
Why
am I writing a book about an old lady and her dog crossing Canada? And it was a no from the first publisher I sent it to. They just couldn't see that anybody would care.
It's so cute.
And in fact, people did.
Kids love this book. Like, this is the one. Like this is the one that I hear about the most from my friends. Wow. Yeah, wow. Is that their kids wants to read this book over and over again, which I honestly like. Is a little bit surprising to me too. Like, I love it, but like,
it might be.
What's the appeal? Like,
it might be. It might be the ending. This is an old lady and a dog who are crossing from Tofino, on the BC's west coast, all the way across to Newfoundland, where her sister lives. They're going to see her sister because her sister is sick, and adults care about that because one old lady visiting the other old lady. They think the second one is dying. Now, I never intended that, but her sister is sick on the other side of the country. She's visiting. All the way along, the dog is promised a surprise.
Ooh.
We don't know what the dog's surprise is, but trying to build some suspense and keep the kids reading as they go through province to province. Well, it turns out that his surprise is another dog, his brother, who looks exactly like him and who he's entirely forgot about. So my favorite line here is
that you wrote.
Yeah, my favorite line that I wrote. Yeah, Carson barked with delight. This was even better than Squeaky Chicken. Carson hadn't seen his brothers since they were pups. He couldn't believe how handsome Digby had grown.
They're identical.
Digby is identical to him, and he's so pleased that Digby's handsome.
This is the other thing I enjoy about my mom, is that she gets a kick out of her own jokes.
I have to. Somebody has to. I mean, I'm sitting here by myself, right?
The other thing also I should say is that my mom still edits a lot of my work. It's been such a gift to have a talented writer as a mom who knows everything about story and language, because I'm also a writer.
Yes,
and thank you for that, a lot of that.
And Leah always gives me a lot of lead time. You know, she maybe 2 or 3 hours. She sends me something and wants it at 2.
Yeah, but I'm always like, if you can't, it's okay. I understand.
Yeah.
But then you always do it because you're the best mom ever. And what was I going to say? I can't remember. It slipped my mind. This is a really good one. There's many other good ones. We have really enjoyed, you know what this kind of reminds me of? You probably won't get this reference, but Coach's Corner. It's from hockey where it's Ron McLean and that guy that basically got canceled. What's his name? You know, the hockey guy, the old hockey guy that like yells at the TV.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Anyways, they're one of them's talking and the other one's just looking in the camera as the other one talks. And that's what I've been doing as you're talking like the whole time.
I can't see that well, or hear that well either. So
perfect.
I barely, you know.
You're just like
teeny tiny camera here, you know. I mean,
Well, I think this has been really good. High five.
I was made for the big screen.
Right. We want to thank everybody for watching. Check out Linda Bailey Books and Linda Bailey Inc. INK on Twitter. And we'll be back next week with another wonderful interview hosted by Tamara Lana next week. Thanks so much, Linda Bailey.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody. This has been Curtain Call. See you next week.